welcome back to the Pins and Needles podcast. My name is Zoe. You can find me everywhere on the internet as Pins and Needles UK. And if you check the drop down box below this video, you'll find links to my Ravelry designer store for patterns, my Payhip store for patterns, details and timings for everything I talk about today, information about Cartref yarn and the Knit Tea retreats that I run with my friend Jennie of Owl About Yarn. I think that's about it. So welcome back to returning viewers and welcome to anybody that's new. It has been a while since I've recorded again, but I thought I would just record a super quick one while the chili con carne is microwaving. I did a big batch cook the other day and I've run out of energy for cooking today, so dinner from the freezer it is. Let's jump straight in with my only finished object. And this is a pair of Christmas socks. I think I showed you these last time and I was dashing out of the door a couple of weeks ago and I needed some quick and easy knitting to take with me. So I grabbed the yarn I needed for these because they're both West Yorkshire Spinners and that already comes in a centre pull ball, so I didn't need to wind anything. So yes, the main colour is Hollyberry by West Yorkshire Spinners and it's one of their previous Christmas yarns. I don't think it was the 2020 colourway. No, 2020 was the Silent Night sparkly blue one, so this is from a previous year. And the cuff, heel and toe I did in Cayenne, I think. Sounds about right. And this pattern is a bit of a mishmash between my plain vanilla sock pattern, which is called As Requested, and it's just a 2x2 cuff, heel, flap and gusset. But just for a change, I did a different sort of toe. Normally I do a standard wedge toe, but this time I fancied something a little different. I've been experimenting with rounded toes, and I have a sock pattern called Forest Snow or Snow Forest or something that has Kay Jones umbrella toe in it, which, if you can see, decreases similar to a hat. So you have decreases following lines going up and gives you this nice rounded toe. And I think it looks quite nice. I haven't tried wearing these yet. I literally only grafted the last few stitches together a few days ago. The Snow Forest socks that I pinched the toe from were knitted up as a gift for Jeanette, who usually watches this podcast. Hi Jeanette. And hopefully she will let me know if they're a nice comfy fit. I will probably just put these into normal rotation. I don't think I'll save them for Christmas. But yeah, it was a really fun pattern. And there's two different shades of red in it, a sort of a proper red and a slightly more corally one, and a couple of different shades of green. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. If you remember on my last episode, I was talking about the difference in my tension when I knit socks on DPNs versus magic loop. And I hadn't realised that my tension was so much tighter on magic loop. But lots of you left comments on the video to say that's a very normal thing and it happens to you as well. So having knit a decent chunk of the first leg, I did just try it on, pulled it over my foot and then up over my heel, up to my leg. And these do fit much better. And I went up to a 2.5mm needle. I think I just used Knit Pro Nova's fixed circs. And yeah, I've got a much more standard gauge. I'm back to my 9 stitches an inch rather than 10 stitches, which is what I was getting on 2.25 magic loop. So these fit much better. I do have quite a bit of yarn left over. This, I haven't weighed it yet. This is the West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply Hollyberry, which it's either colourway number 886 or colourway 1145, it's not clear, but I've got a decent amount left. And this is the contrast, again, not weighed up. and I've got tons left, which is good because I sort of bought this as contrast, heels, cuffs and toes. So I'm pretty sure I can get another pair of socks out of this. They might have to be slightly shorter in the leg. I might even, horror of horrors, do toe up to make the most of the yarn. We shall see. So that is my only finished object. If I move on to works in progress, because I cast a sock off, I cast another sock on. I didn't have any work knitting, sock knitting for work, so I grabbed the ball of yarn. Oh, I'm not going to be able to find the tag now. That was given to me as a gift by Katrin, a friend of mine, and she claims she can never remember birthdays, so she sent our group of friends Easter presents instead. And it included this lovely sock set. So it's a sparkly merino nylon with these sort of frosty blues and greens and patches of undyed, with a contrasting mini, which is an absolutely gorgeous colour. It's sort of a lime green. There's a word for it. Chartreuse, that's the word I'm looking for. Chartreuse. Ooh, it was escaping. And I've cast on a 3x1 ribbed sock. I did a 1x1 twisted rib for the cuff, and that's how the yarn's knitting up, which is looking really lovely. But I also quite like the wrong side. If I twiddle it round the other way, I quite like how that looks. So it's sort of mostly reverse stocking stitch with just this line of pearls that turns out to look like knits on the wrong side. So I'm about 1/2 inch from starting the heel. So at that point I'll make a decision which way round I want it. But it's lovely yarn to work with. I can't remember the colourway. It might be something like, it's a winter themed colourway, but I'll put it in the show notes down below. However, having taken my knitting to work with me, I have of course remembered that I never have time to knit at work. So I've brought it home again, partly to show you, but yeah, I am very busy when I'm at work, so it doesn't get a huge amount of love, but that's okay. And the project bag I'm keeping it in is the oldest project bag I have, and it's this fabulous mushroom print with a nice bright green lining. And I bought this from a yarn show, like one of the very first yarn shows I went to, and I bought it from a vendor called the Bothered Owl, who doesn't make anymore, or at least doesn't sell anymore. But yeah, I've had it absolutely years, and it's my standard out and about knitting project bag, and it's been through the washing machine several times and it's holding up really well. So yeah, quite fond of that little bag. My other main work in progress took me rather by surprise. If you remember, I've been knitting, it's just down here, my Yell cardigan by Marie Wallin from her Shetland pattern book. And I absolutely love this. I really enjoy knitting it. And I think when I showed you the last time, I was kind of here. So I'm very nearly at the point where I need to add in steeking stitches for the underarms. I knitted it a bit longer than the pattern called for because I'm quite tall. And the way the pattern is designed, it's supposed to be, it doesn't have any back neck shaping, which means that the front lifts slightly, which is intended. But given that I'm already quite tall, I wanted an extra 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So I've added another repeat. Two motifs is one repeat of the chart. I think I was supposed to stop here. So I've added another 1/2 a repeat. So I'm not far off dividing, not dividing for the sleeves, adding in the sleeve steek stitches. As you can see, it's very detailed, it's lots of colour work. And with this chart in particular, there are quite a few rounds where you're working your yarn together, you're twisting it as you knit, because you have some spans of sort of 9, 12 and 14 stitches to carry the yarn over. So having gone back to work, my brain didn't really feel up to complicated colour work. And then I saw one of my friends, Mary, if you're watching, hello Mary, had dug out some absolutely beautiful green yarn to knit her husband a jumper. And she'd spotted Katie Greenbean's new Beetles colourwork yoke jumper and wanted to knit that for her husband. And I just suddenly had this yearning for a green cardigan for spring. And I wanted it completely plain, super simple, no brain required. And I had a good hunt around, and as it so happened, there was the perfect pattern. This is my knitting clipboard, and if I cover up the thing, this is the clipboard where I keep all my patterns that I need to refer to and bits and pieces of design work. And to gussy it up, I've added an Emma Ball sheep sticker at the top. Can you see how cute? And that was another gift from Catherine in my Easter box. She sent me a sheet of Emma Ball stickers that I know she got from Angela of Yarn and Yarns. Anyway, let me have a look through and I will find... Did I print off the picture? Surely I printed off the picture. I know, don't call me Shirley. Yes, here we are. So I'm knitting the April cardigan by Petite Knit, which was released really quite recently. I don't think there's any... No, there's just basic info on the front cover. And it's exactly what I was after. Completely plain stocking stitch V-neck cardigan. She's got 4 inches of ribbing at the bottom, and I only want 2. I don't want that much ribbing because I'm cutting it a little fine with my yarn. So I'm going to knit 2 more inches of plain stocking stitch and just do 2 inches for the bottom. Yeah, so it was released in April. I started knitting it in May, and in my head I was after a nice easy knit, something is top down, I could just let my fingers fly and it wouldn't be a challenge. And it's one of those patterns where you have to read all the instructions and it says do these increases at this rate, and at the same time do these increases at a different rate, and then do some more increases when you finished the first set but are still going on the second set, and now there's a third set. So it wasn't difficult to understand what I had to do. It's a very well written pattern, but there was not a cat in hell's chance of me remembering the increase rates at all the different points, because this is a contiguous sleeve construction. So top down, and you are shaping the shoulder and the arm side and the yoke in tandem, if that makes sense. So before I could actually get going, I made myself a massive, great big spreadsheet, which I can't show you because it gives away the rate of increases for the size I'm knitting. But literally I just went through the pattern, sat there on Google Docs, did the row numbers down one side, and then you have V-neck increases at the same time as shoulder increases, and then the shoulder increases are finished. And then you continue with the V-neck increases and start sleeve increases, and then you continue with the V-neck increases, stop the sleeve increases, and continue with the raglan increases, halfway through which the V-neck increases stop. Did that make sense? Anyway, it has a nice range of sizes. It goes from extra small all the way up to 5XL, which should cover, let me just double check, 35 3/4 inches up to 62 1/4 inches, which is 91 centimetres to 158 centimetres, and it's supposed to be worn with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. Yes, so that's the pattern. Put that back on my clipboard. And the yarn I used is, I did get a ball, is some yarn that is part of my deep, deep stash. If my stash were an archaeological dig, this would be probably Neolithic. But I absolutely love it, and I've been desperate to use this yarn for a while. It's Serdar Balmoral DK. That colourway is pretty accurate, and you can see it's almost the same as the walls of my front room. It's a lovely sagey green colour, and it's a discontinued yarn, so that's another reason why I'm being a bit careful when I'm knitting this project, because if I run out, I'm a bit stuffed, to be honest. It is 72% wool, 25% alpaca and 3% silk, and you get 125 metres or 135 yards in 50 grams. I bought this from the first time I went to the knitting and stitching show in Alexandra Palace, or Ali Pali, with my knit group. When I first learnt to knit, I was interested in finding a knit night, and I went online, and it was the Debbie Stoller's Stitch and Bitch, I think it was, and you had to sign up to a Yahoo email address and then you could find a group. So I found my local group, which is where I first met Jennie of All About Yarn, and made some really nice friends. They're a lovely group, and they organised a coach trip. One of our members worked at the time for Cardiff University, and part of her job was organising staff events and outings, because they had quite a nice social scene, and staff were allowed to organise their own events, sort of using the contacts for coach hire that the university had. So she'd always organise a coach to go up to Wonderwall in Builth Wells, and also down to Ali Pali in London. So I went down on the coach, and if anybody remembers, back in the day when we were allowed to go to yarn shows, down in Ali Pali there would be a big double-sized stand, and I think it was black sheep wools, and they would clearly save all their end of line and discount balls of wool for Ali Pali. And as well as having yarn sort of around the edge of the stand in bookcases, they would have, I can only describe it as a yarn mountain on the floor. So it was packs of yarn with discount prices on them, and they would literally just tip it. And I remember this, it was sort of hip height on me, and I'm 6'1", and the only thing to do was just sort of swim into the middle of it and shoosh through things to find something that you wanted. Actually, I've still got the original bag it came in. So I got 10 balls of gorgeous, gorgeous commercial yarn for this princely sum of £16.99. Look, still got the label on it. Yeah. Oh, there you are. The colourway's Highlander, shade 0486, colourway Highlander. So I've got 10 balls of this, and it was exactly the colour I wanted. And yeah, there's a small chance I might be playing yarn chicken. So let me show you the cardigan. I've talked about it enough. Let me show you. That's the ball I'm knitting from. I haven't put stoppers on my needles. I should have thought to get a coat hanger, actually. That might have been better. And this is how far I've got. So what's today? The 18th, I think, or maybe the 19th of May. And I cast this on the 2nd of May, the day before we reopened the gym. And I've got all the way to the point where I think I need to start the ribbing. So I can't obviously give any of the details of this away because it is a paid for pattern. How much was it? Maybe £5, I think. But if I show you the sleeve shaping. So if you can see, I've got a band of stitches coming down here, which stays the same. So you're increasing either side of these stitches. So you keep this sort of, it reminds me of a saddle shoulder. And then you have increases then for the sleeves, which, yeah, you can just see them running down here. And then when you've done all of that, there is a line of raglan increasing. Now it felt, when I got to the raglan increases, it felt a little tight on my needles. So I was a bit concerned about that, but actually it gives you this lovely tidy line, and you're increasing either side of them. And it doesn't look too tight. The fabric looks fine now I've finished it. And I'm sure that with a good block, it will just relax slightly. So I've put the sleeves on waste yarn. I only had a short length, so they're looking a bit scrunched up. They are, believe it or not, my arms are bigger than that. And I've knit to the length, it's the pattern suggested. And this is the point at which I'm supposed to start the 4 inches of rib. But because this yarn has alpaca in it, it is 25% alpaca, I want to take the needles out and block this just to see how much it grows. I've knitted a cardigan with this yarn before. When I bought this yarn, I loved it so much, I bought quite a few colours. Excuse me. And if I remember, I will put a picture up here of my epistrophe cardigan by Kate Davis. And that's a colourwork yoke, and I knitted that in blue colour of this with white as the contrast, or cream as the contrast. And I haven't had any issues with that cardigan stretching. That epistrophe is bottom up, but it's a yoke, so it still doesn't have structured seams at the shoulders. It doesn't have sewn in sleeves, you know, that you'd knit separately and stitch in. So it doesn't have seamed support, and that seems to have held up really well. I wear it a lot. But I thought, you know, just to be safe, I'll block this. And if it's tricky. How many balls of yarn have I got left? I've got four balls, 4.5 balls, I think. And I've got to do possibly 2 inches of stocking stitch for the body, plus 2 inches of rib. And I've got to do the sleeves. And then I've got to do the button band afterward. And as I said, if I run out, I'm stuffed. So I'm going to block it. I don't mind a slightly cropped length. So I'll finish the body, and then I'll see how much yarn I have left. I'll probably finish the body, then do the button band, and then whatever I have left over, I'll divide into 2 piles, 1 for each sleeve, and I'll just knit till I run out. I wouldn't mind it being 3/4 length sleeves, because it is supposed to be a summery spring summer weight cardigan. Or I could just keep it as a short sleeve cardigan and then wear long sleeve t-shirts underneath. I'm not sure. So I haven't actually worked on this for a few days because I've been wanting to show you guys before I put it into soak. So yeah, April cardigan by Petite Knit in Ceredigion, Balmoral. And I've really enjoyed working on this. Once I'd done my spreadsheet, it became brainless because I could just knit and tick and knit and tick, and now it was just, this body section was just absolute bliss. I do love a stocking stitch product. Sewing section, completely down to me, my lovely daughter Jocelyn, who is going to talk to us about her sewing.
Well, here's the thing. Some of you may know, some of you might not. I took textiles from GCSE this year. And obviously because of COVID, we've only been doing theory work, which is just writing and like looking at sewers like Stella McCartney. Right now doing Laura Ashley, who I actually really love her stuff. It's a shame that they've gone out bankrupt.
Really interesting history to that business. It was a family business.
Yeah, and she actually originated in prints for tea towels and headscarves.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite interesting. But before all of COVID, we were doing our first piece of proper practical work, which are hoodies. And COVID happened whilst we were in the middle of just doing a small bit of theory work, and then we haven't been able to do any theory work since halfway through year 9, so it's been like
practical
a year.
work.
Yeah, any practical works of sewing. So for like a couple of years I haven't been sewing, and we were doing hoodies. I think I've said that like 6 times already, but I managed to steal mine back and finish it off at home, and luckily was posted the stuff on Google Classroom. And if you hold the hood up,
Oh, the hood. Okay.
bam! Look at that.
That's the hoodie.
It's not properly finished. I had no clue how to sew the hood, so I just kind of stitch it on top, which like with other hoodies, they kind of do that, but it's like a bit neat. Mine doesn't, but like
I think you sewed it to the wrong side, but you double lined the hood.
double line hoods.
It's difficult to see because it's completely black.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
And proper cuffs in the
Proper
same
cuff.
fabric.
Look at that.
Yeah.
The only thing wrong with this is that it doesn't fit me. This is a unisex hoodie, so it doesn't take into account of bust size, and Dad's line of the side is notorious for having big bust size, and unfortunately I did inherit that gene. So we tried putting in...
I think it worked really well.
We tried putting in these side panels by here.
I don't know if you can see from the seam lines.
Yeah.
We tried to work out how to add width into the side seams. And so I don't know if you can see, you cut like a long thin rectangle. Maybe they'll see it better on the inside if they see the seams. You can see there's 2 sticky icky bits. So a couple of inch wide, and then you tapered it to a point where it hits the arm side so that it wouldn't interfere.
Yeah, but turns out that I also cut the thing too small, and that it didn't cover, it was too short for my torso, so I just kind of gave up. I did the bottom hem.
But as an exercise in actually making something, this was completely successful.
Yeah, and this is counting towards my GCSE as well, so you know it's good.
And it's got like a pouch.
And this is meant to say, Houston, we have many problems, but I want to keep this but unpick this, mainly because Houston, we have many pro.
the embroidery machine had issues.
And then also it's not in centre. And also one thing is that I need to put the bottom cuff in, but I'm going to make my textiles teacher watch this, so hi Miss Davis.
But no, I think you did a really good job. You followed the pattern, you asked me for help just to refill the bobbin,
and then I can do it by myself.
You did the whole thing, and I think it's really good. So yeah, just the bottom cuff hem thing to go.
And then I'm just going to trim this because I am not going to touch the hood ever again in my life.
I think you should unpick this and do it the right way round, because you've done such a really good job on the rest of it.
A bit.
Yeah, and if it is going to be used for your GCSE project, I think it would be worth the half an hour it would take.
And also, we're going to be making pyjamas soon as well.
Yes.
And I've been thinking that I will make my lovely mother a pair of pyjamas, since I don't like wearing pyjamas.
I do.
Mum likes pyjamas.
I've got a Tilly in the Buttons. I can't remember the name of the pattern, but it was part of her stretch book, if anyone's got Tilly in the Buttons stretch. And I got it as a free pattern in a sewing magazine, so we can have a crack at that together.
And I thought I should find a purple that matches her dressing gown with sheeps on, and I can kind of like, I don't know what I would do, but maybe make a print or like do something to add sheep on it so she has matching stuff to
Sheepy pyjamas. We'll keep you updated on that.
Maybe. We hopefully are going to be able to do practical work after half term, and Miss Davis thinks we can. But if not, I can just be like...
The issue is that after someone uses the machine, they have to clean it down and then leave it for 72 hours. Which I feel is a little unnecessary.
And if we were to do that, they would only let the 6th formers and the year 11s do it, since they're more priority than
people in their actual exam years.
Yeah, I mean, we are in our exam years. I mean, year 10 now. But we've done so much theory work, we actually no longer have to do... Oh, Jim! We actually no longer have to do any exams this year for textile, so...
Oh, that's good.
No questions.
Do you know what the pattern was for your hoodie?
It was just a random one that Miss cut out onto some paper. I can email her and ask.
I wouldn't worry about that. There are plenty of hoodie patterns out there. You can't quite see Jim's bottom down there.
He's just right by here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming on.
There's
And hopefully Jocelyn will be back soon with pyjamas. Modelled by moi.
Yes, modelled by you. We can have matching sets.
Maybe we
Silk
should.
pyjamas.
Hers and hers. Silk is really tricky to sew. It's very slippery and really expensive if you make a pig's ear of it. Anyway, hopefully they'll be sewing again.
We should
soon.
end this with a bit of Jim footage if I put it down a bit. Oh, I don't know how to do that.
You just have to. Oh, he's gone now.
Jim!
Come here. Jim.
Look at him!
What are you doing? Can you see a snoot? Yes, just about.
Slaps.
Moving on to spinning and continuing works in progress. If you remember, the last time I podcasted, I included a little sort of unboxing of my electric eel wheel 6 electric spinning wheel. And I had just spun up a little sample, some oatmeal BFL, but I have been busily spinning away, and I've been spinning up some Shetland Mooret. And this was purchased from World of Wool and passed on to me. And Shetland, as I'm sure you know, comes in many colours, and this is a lovely mid-brown, they call it Mooret. And I have spun up half, I've spun up 50 grams, and you can see how enormous these bobbins are. I haven't even half filled my bobbin. Look at that. The reason I have stopped working on this is because I saw on the Facebook group that the plug sent with this machine does not meet British safety standards. My father is a chartered electrical engineer, and he is also quite belt and braces when it comes to safety, and I could just hear him in my head saying what a disaster that would be. So as soon as I found out, I stopped using the spinner. It's just a question of buying a new power cable. I think I've got it down here. So the power block itself is absolutely fine, and the end that plugs into the spinner is fine, but it's just this bit, this plug, and this is just a standard 2-pin job. So I've probably got a spare one of these in a cupboard somewhere, and even if I don't, it'll only be a few pounds off Amazon. But that's why my spinning has come to a bit of a halt, because I don't want to give myself an electric shock. In terms of using the e-spinner, I'm still really enjoying it. I've got into the hang of using it a bit more. It's a really nice machine to use. I have to say, I wouldn't try a new spinning technique on it. You set the speed with a dial on the side, and it keeps that consistent speed, which is brilliant. But if you're trying a new technique, or even perhaps a slightly trickier fibre, you don't have the ability to treadle more slowly to slow it all down while you figure something out, or get your fingers unplaited, or work out a nubbly bit in the fibre. So Shetland is a really nice fibre to spin. I haven't used it before, but it's a nice woolly fibre. It drafts easily. It's nice to handle. It's not difficult. So I was happy to chuck this on my e-spinner. If I were to try long draw or art yarns or anything like that, I would certainly start using my Ashford traditional for that, and perhaps move on to this once I've got the hang of it. So that consistent speed of spin is a blessing and a curse depending on what you want. But I really enjoyed this, and like I said, it's a shame I had to stop because of that safety issue, but I just haven't got around to sorting it out. Now, if you remember, I was spinning different sheep breeds for a year-long spin-along, Fluff to Stuff 2021, which is organised by Mina of the Knitting Expat, Marceline Smith of Hay Brownberry, and Grace of Babbles Travelling Yarns, or Babbles Yarns, I think she is now. The idea being to spin with a purpose and actually use your hand spun. And I think the last time we spoke, I had spun up my first 100 grams, and this was some Humbug Jacob, again from World of Wool. And I have now, this is my leftovers, I spun up 100 grams and I have knitted 2 squares for the blanket. And the pattern I'm using is a Tin Can Knits Vivid blanket. I think I dropped a bit of gravy on the pattern page, but it's knitted in blocks that you sew together at the end. So I thought that would work out quite well. And I've knitted 2 squares, but obviously I haven't blocked them. This poofed up quite a lot when it hit water when I was setting it, so it ended up as a worsted weight rather than the DK I was aiming for. So these might end up quite large compared to other skeins if I can get a more accurate DK weight. I'm showing you the back there, that's no good, is it? I don't think you'll be able to see the lace design. Can you see a bit better that way? That's not really showing up, is it? Trust me, there's a lace design on here. It has a pinhole cast on, which I absolutely hate doing, but unfortunately it works really well. And it's a way of ensuring that the very middle of your blanket square is completely closed up. It involves a crochet hook and your finger, and it makes me want to scream. So I struggled through it for these 2 squares, but life is too short. And when I moved on to my next spin and I was knitting that up, I just did my normal Norwegian twisted cast on, and I'll sew up the bloody hole at the end when I'm done, because that will save me about 45 minutes of swearing. The next one I spun up was this Wensleydale, and I remember showing you the fibre, really nice long staple of about 8 inches, and I've washed it now and it's puffed up a little, it's got a bit fuzzier, and can you see the shine on that? It really is gorgeous. I kept the twist fairly low when I was plying it because I didn't want to make the yarn hard and I wanted it to have its natural drape. However, where my Jacob was a little too heavy, I think this has come out a little too light. It's ended up as a sport weight. I'm pleased with the yarn, I'm really pleased with the yarn, but I don't actually know if it'll work for my blanket. I cast on, I just hand wound the ball. I ended up with 250 gram skeins, and I spun this on my Ashford traditional. And I've just started knitting a square in the Wensleydale. Now you can see the lace a lot better in this one, but it is going to be so wildly different. I mean, even just in the size, of course, this will turn out thicker than this. This is probably a sport weight, and this is worsted to almost Aran. So what I'm going to do is finish knitting this square. I'll block the ones I've done so far and see if this will actually work in the blanket. My options are it's going to work fine and I can just crack on and knit more squares, or it's too light, too thin, in which case I could hold 2 strands doubled and just accept that I'm knitting an almost Aran weight blanket, or I could just rip this out, put it to one side and use the yarn for something else because it would make the most beautiful drapey shawl. I'm a little undecided. I will keep you updated, and I'm keeping my blanket squares in this lovely drawstring bag that my mum made me for Christmas with a purple ribbon and robins on it. I'm very quickly going to size out of this project bag, but for now I'm enjoying it very much. So I mean, yeah, the purpose of Fluffter Stuff, as I said, was to spin with a project in mind and get on with knitting your hand spun. And I am guilty of leaving hand spun yarn to sit in my stash. So mission accomplished as far as working with your hand spun goes, but I'm not sure about that Wensleydale. We will have to wait and see. I mentioned on my last podcast that lovely Meg of Mrs M's Curiosity Cabinet had kindly donated a copy of her most recent pamphlet to give away to viewers of the podcast. So I asked you to leave a comment underneath the last episode, and I have now drawn a winner for that. I will put the person's YouTube name up on screen now, and if you could please send me either an email to hipinsandneedles@gmail.com or a direct message on either Ravelry or Instagram. Let me know your postal address and things like that, and I will get that out to you in the post as soon as possible. I really hope you enjoy reading, and thank you again to Meg for such a kind donation. I don't have any acquisitions to share with you this week, so that's the end of the crafting content. If you want to stick around for a bit of chat, by all means. What's been happening? I've got new spectacles. Can you see? Look, they're like shiny green. You can't really see. They're kind of like beetle glasses. So I've been enjoying being able to see the edges of things again. The gym has now reopened. Wales is now slowly starting to come out of lockdown. I think I'm recording this on a Wednesday, and Monday pubs were allowed to reopen indoors, restaurants indoors, cinemas, bowling alleys, kids' soft play centres are opening back up, so that's encouraging. The gym was allowed to reopen on the 3rd, Monday the 3rd, which was a bank holiday. And Dave and I were sort of surprisingly nervous about getting going again. It was lovely to see everybody back. We've got a lot of members who have been with us years, and we've really been missing. So over the course of a week, they all trickled back in, and it was so good to see them and catch up. And people were really desperate to get back into the gym and train. But it has been back to really quite full on. We're working a lot of hours, personal training on top, running the kids, that kind of thing. So that's why I needed my simple green cardigan. But it's good to be back. I'm a busy sort and I enjoy what I do for a living. But I'd forgotten quite how much cleaning is involved. There's a lot of cleaning anyway when you run a gym, but running a gym with COVID restrictions, it's a whole nother level. So yeah, I permanently walk around in a cloud of lemon fragranced detergent, but that's fine. If it means we can stay open, I'll clean whatever they need me to clean. The kids are back in school after Easter, which was nice. People still aren't allowed, extended households are allowed again, so you can buddy up with one other household, and they are allowed in your house, but you can't generally let anyone into your home. So Max had his 14th birthday, and he couldn't have an indoor party with his friends, but fortunately the weather was quite nice that weekend, and you're allowed in people's back gardens. So we got the fire pit going and bought some pizza, and one of his friends had baked and brought around cupcakes, so he had a really nice time in the garden with his friends. And we live on Barry Island, which is right on the coast of South Wales, with 2 lovely beaches, and we have a really nice front. It's got cafes and slot machines and shops full of tat, and so Dave gave them £20 and they all went and bought ice cream and some chips and things, so that was really nice. I finally got to see my mum. They reopened the border between Wales and England on the 21st of April, and it took us a couple of weekends to work out when we could see each other. But we all met up outside, sort of halfway, just on the border, and again it was a nice weekend. So there was an outdoor picnic, and my brother and his family came, as well as mum and dad, and it was just so nice to see them. It was really good. And I think that's about it, to be honest. Everyone's well. I've had my second COVID jab now. I felt a bit disgusting after that, but much better than having COVID. And yeah, we're just cracking on. The weather's cheering up a little bit. It's a lovely sunny day, or sunny evening, and I can just smell that I've burnt the chips in the oven. I've got chili con carne and chips for dinner, and I think the chips are now charcoal, so it might have to be rice. Anyway, I shall leave you there. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Don't forget to send me that direct message, the lucky winner of the Mrs. M's pamphlet. and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye.